Hi, this is Curt, and welcome to another edition of Fire Law Roundup.
And this is in New York State. I'm well familiar with the people involved in the case, but the mother of a New York firefighter who died in the line of duty at an assisted living facility. There's been a number of these, and that death was in 21. She's now suing. She's suing the facility, which is pretty good. She probably should. Its owners, the nursing home's owners, two of the contractors. I don't yet understand that yet. And the village, which is what today's focus on, which is interesting. But the village who's now sued, well, let me say, so the facts are this. So Jared Lloyd, he was 35. He was a volunteer with Spring Valley Fire Department. This was a big fire. It started because, well, as I understand it, it started because some rabbis were down in the kitchen and they were trying to heat some things to make them sterile and kosher, and that started a fire. That's how I understand it.
They were the two rabbis, or I think it was a father and a son, but they were the ones. They were the contractors that were sued.
Oh, okay. And that makes sense. That makes sense. So I think they fled the country, frankly.
Did they?
No, yeah. Rumor is they took off to Israel and they're out. I don't know that they've ever come back, but that was the rumor. So, you know, I'm close to some of this, not involved.
But there were manslaughter charges. I'm not sure if they were the ones. I haven't really followed the civilian side of this, but I know some of the folks were charged with manslaughter for the deaths.
Yeah, and that would make sense. That would make sense. But here, there's a number of suits, but this suit focuses mostly on the village. And I don't think this is going to be successful, but it raises a really interesting question. So one of the things they're doing, and let me explain to the more for New York viewers. Well, I guess this is pretty generic. So as many people know, in volunteer and paid departments, you cannot sue your employer, right? You get workers' comp and you can't sue your employer for pain and suffering or anything else. You just get workers' comp. In New York State, you get the volunteer firefighters benefit law protection, which is like volunteer comp, although a little better. And here, the village is the employer of Jared, or was the employer of Jared, because they're the municipality in control of the fire department. It was a village fire department. The really interesting part of this case is what they're suing the village over are the acts of the code enforcement officer and the village for allowing an allegedly known dangerous condition to perpetuate and keep going. So I look at this really interesting, right? So you can't sue the village for your injuries, your death in this case. But on the other hand, they're suing a department of the village having nothing to do with the kind of village's status as the fire department, but instead as the code enforcement department. So I think, I mean, that kind of sums this up, but I think this is going to be an incredibly interesting case as to whether the compensation prohibition that says you can't sue your employer is going to apply when you're trying to sue your employer, but for a totally different, unrelated reason to the fire department.
Well, is interesting, and I'm not as familiar as you are with the facts, but is the fire department a 501c3 nonprofit, or are they a municipal department?
Well, they could be both, right? In New York, as you know, we have crazy laws, which is, I really appreciate.
If you can be both.
You can be both. So the municipality in control is the village. And in a case a while ago, the courts held that you can only sue, or the entity liable for the fire company is never the fire company. It's always the municipality in control. So in New York State, you can only ever go after the municipality in control, which in this case is the village.
And by the way, the municipality has immunity, so you can't sue at all.
Right, right. Which is where it's going to get really interesting, because now they're looking to sue for violation of code enforcement, or you're allowed a known danger. To me, that's a tough immunity hurdle anyway. Yeah. But
it seemed like they were teeing up. They threw out the special duty issue here, which is a sort of an end around some of the public duty doctrine and some of the other protections. And it's almost like I don't see a special duty on the facts.
Look, there's no one-on-one relationship between, Jared and and anybody really, right? The village didn't tell him to go in. Maybe it was implicit, it's part of your duties, but he didn't rely on them that this building was safe. And so there's no real obligation or ability of any firefighter to rely on their municipality, right? Can you imagine if this, and again, I feel horrible for Jared, don't get me wrong.
Me too. We all do. Yeah.
Has nothing to do with that.
Right.
And nobody should think that, or I'll get, rocks thrown at me every time I go to Rockland. But this isn't about Jared as far as the legal issue goes. But can you imagine if a firefighter could sue the city because the city code enforcement officer failed to provide a safe working place for the firefighter?
Yeah,
that'd be incredible.
One of the cases I use is a case out of the Beverly Hills Supper Club fire, and out of Kentucky, and the Kentucky Supreme Court said you can't sue code enforcement people for failure to enforce the code. That's a public responsibility, it's a public duty, and it won't sustain unless you can show a special duty. It won't sustain a negligence finding. So tough case there.
Tough case. One of a few. It's unfortunate. Look, I think they should be suing the rabbis, the contractors, if they can find them or get them, and definitely, probably the nursing home for having a dangerous place. Proximate cause is going to be tough because how many intervening causes are there in a fire? Okay, fine, it started, but there's a lot of things in between the death and the fire starting. So it's a tough lawsuit, and I feel badly, but I think it is going to be an easier case against the nursing home as well as the rabbis. I think that it's a much more straightforward case. There may be some defenses, but I think it's more straightforward than against the municipality. Yeah, and if you remember Black Sunday, those lawsuits, they failed. Right? I mean, they tried to get I believe recall, they failed. No. There was a $181 million verdict. Black Sunday. It was the criminal law that failed. Yeah, the criminal side failed. Yeah. So it's not so far different than that, right? When Black Sunday, where everything was broken up and chopped up and. I don't know if this applies to volunteers, and we're really getting deep into New York law, so it's really your area of expertise, but you've got a funky law that allows an exception to immunity as well as an exception to workers' comp exclusivity when the government violates a statutory duty. And I see a lot of tort cases out of FDNY going along those theories. But when government, for example, FDNY, violates a statute, then it opens some sort of immunity. It's a statutory immunity. It's not negligence. Kind of sounds in negligence, but it's really based on that violation of a statute. Yeah. So perhaps that's what is being alleged here as well. Well, see, I have not read the entire complaint, but anyway. So I wish obviously Jared's family some luck on this. I just think they've got a tough road to hoe.